There's nothing quite like the high seas. That briny air when you're out there, you've got the ocean wind running through your hair, the fish, the tuna, they're jumping around your ship, and oh wait, what's that? Oh, a warship off the port bow spewing fire, missiles, or cannonballs. Yeah, I like to call that the good old days. Now, in Age of Empires 2, well, that's one rendition of the good old days, and fighting on the water is an important part of the game. It's quite different in terms of strategy, a lot of different units. In the one sense, it's simple in terms of naval operations, but on the other hand, it's actually not as simple as it appears. Fighting on water is, well, it can get complicated. In this video, right, I'm gonna break down the best naval civilizations in the game. One of the things about navies in AOE2 is that oftentimes we see the best navies being picked over and over again on water maps, and a lot of other ones be left behind. So you are going to want to know what civilizations in the game are going to give you your best chance to take command of the high seas and take your civilization to victory. So without further ado, let's get out there and get after it. What is happening, everybody? It's your boy Jimmy James 59, and if it's been a couple of weeks since you've heard my little catchphrase there, that is because it's been a couple of weeks since I've put up a video. I'm just in the middle of a bit of a professional transition and a move. I'm still out here. I'm still excited about Age of Empires 2 and generating more content and thinking about the game, etc. So just want to let you know I haven't gone away, just in a bit of a transition in terms of life, and so I'm still here and I'm still here for you. Now, and I know I promised you all, actually, before I get into this video, I know I promised you all a video on skirmishers that will be coming soon, and that definitely is on the way, and also part 3 of my series and what I would change about each civ. So if you're excited for this video and those future videos, why don't you go ahead, subscribe to the channel. It'll take you just a click of a button, maybe hit the notification bell too. That's 2 clicks, and that way you'll be able to get notified whenever I drop a video on this channel. So now let's get into the best naval civilizations in the game. Naval fighting in Age of Empires 2 is very interesting, and there's a lot of different ways that we can look at civilizations. The way I want to look at the civilizations here and the way I tend to think about civilizations when I do these tier lists is I think of the civilization's capabilities, patterns, tendencies, and even limitations through the course of a game, right? I like to think about things in terms of Dark Age, Feudal Age, Castle Age, Imperial Age, that sort of thing. I don't just look at the tech tree and think, oh, okay, well, this civilization, gets all of this. That must mean that it's the best, right? I think it is not that simple. So I do focus on a few important technologies, and in this video you'll hear me talk about technologies like Bracer, which is the last ranged upgrade, and that's going to be very important for galleons. The technology Shipwright, which reduces the wood cost pretty dramatically and also increases the build time, meaning you'll build ships faster, right? So increases the rate at which you build ships, right? Shipwright is very important in the late game. Technologies like Dry Dock, which I believe increases the movement speed of ships. I actually should know that, and I'm pretty sure that that's true. Put a little note in this video, right? That's going to come up when you're watching it, verifying that. Now, also bonuses to warships in terms of performance, but also I'm going to also consider a couple other areas that affect the Navy but may not be directly related to naval warfare. I'm going to think about bonuses to fishing, because fishing is very important in the game to keep your Navy sustained, to keep your economy sustained on water maps, as well as also a civilization's ability to land, right? As I take a moment to land that line, right? to conduct landings, right? Let's call that a civilization's amphibious warfare tendencies, right? So I'm going to factor that in a little bit less. And again, this tier list, it's just my opinion. You know, I actually like some water maps. In fact, I have a really nice galley rush tutorial, a build order for that I did a while back. It's actually one of the videos that has the least views of mine. And I actually think it's one of the better games that I've played in the last year in Age of Empires, just in terms of how clean the game is. And all my build order videos, I always do a ranked game from the ladder so you can see the build in action, right? So I don't just do it against the AI where everything is you know, easy to do in a clean way, right? I like to show you civilization so that way you can see how effective the build can be up against your competition, right? You know, I'll say, you know, as well, right? You know, introducing all my caveats here, right? It's my opinion. I'm somebody who's an intermediate, you know, 1400 level player. So some people think that that's a good rating, and some people think that would think that I'm a noob. I think that these distinctions are, you know, they don't have much of an effect on me regardless, I hope, but I just think, or hope at least, I hope that my thoughts and my advice, if it helps you in your gameplay, whatever your level is, then hey, I'm happy with the job I performed there. So let's go ahead and let's jump in to the video. And thinking about these tiers, right, we have an S through D tier. I don't think we'll need an F tier here, but I'll make one on the fly. And basically, to give a breakdown, S tier civs are just great at all phases of the game. They have a lot of really nice water bonuses. They tend to dominate opponents, such as so on and so forth. The A tier is just a step behind, right? They're very good. They're very good usually at all phases of the game. They just fall a bit behind in terms of the overall capabilities of the S tier civs. B tier civs are decent, right? They may lose in maybe a phase of the game or just not be as strong, right? They may even have they may do, you know, a lot of things well, but still have flaws. And our C tier civs are going to be civs that are just really one-dimensional. So they can do maybe one thing really well, and so there's definitely a purpose to play them on water, but you need to keep in mind that you can only do about one thing with them. And the D tier civs are ones that really can't compete well at any phase. I think all of these civs you can play water to some extent, at least for a portion of the game, but it can fall off pretty dramatically. So with that being said, let's go ahead, jump into it. And we're going to start off with the Aztecs. Now the Aztecs are interesting. I'm going to put Aztecs in the C tier, but they are, I think, a good example of one of our really one-dimensional navies. You're missing the galleon, which is a huge miss. You're missing the cannon galleon as well, but you do get fast fire ships. You have both dry dock and shipwright, right? That's something that's a little bit surprising. And not only that, but Aztec military units create faster. You have a fantastic economy. So Aztecs can do one thing here, fast fires. They can do it really well, and so you know, you might think about, because of all their bonuses, you might be able to win water early with this civilization, even playing, say, like war galleys in Castle Age and switching to fast fires late. I think it's actually a decent civilization in terms of doing that, but you got to remember it's very one-dimensional, and so probably not one you're going to automatically pick on water maps, because water maps also tend to go pretty long. It can be tough to close out your opponent. I maybe should have said this at the beginning of the video. Often water maps can go long. It can be tough to close out your opponent. And this is one of the maps where you often do see players run out of resources pretty regularly. So having cost bonus and resources bonuses are going to really matter. Next up, we have the Bengalis. And boy, Bengalis are really, really interesting. They're either an S or an A tier. I really think... So, here's the argument. Let's put them in the A tier for the moment. I think the argument for Bengalis in the A tier is that You have a very open tech tree. You're only missing on heavy demo ship. You have a really nice economic bonus, getting villagers for each town center when you age up. That can be really good for booming. The thing that is great about the Bengalis, though, is your ship hit points regenerate. And fighting in naval warfare often involves a lot of back and forth, a lot of retreating when your ships have taken damage, and having that HP is nice. I do think for me, that is not quite enough to put them on the next level. This is so God, we're 2 civs in, and I'm already doubting. Well, I'm already having some doubts about my tier list. You know, having the Mahayana tech to take out some population space, that can be nice as well. I just don't think that they have quite enough to get them to. I just think that they have quite enough to get them to the S tier, right? S tier, I think, is a pretty select group in naval warfare, and so I think we got to keep them in the A tier for right now. All right, next up we have the Berbers, and Berbers for me are a good example of a B tier civilization. You have a really nice open tech tree. You get pretty much everything. Your ships are faster, so you can be able to hunt down your opponents, and that's really nice. But you're missing shipwright in the late game, and shipwright is such a massive bonus, and because water maps often tend to go pretty long, it's a fair bet that you're gonna have to research this. And so Berbers are a good civilization of one where you can win early, though you might not have the eco to get the numbers out. You can still force fights and force engagements, and that can be very strong. And so I think you're good in Feudal Age and Castle Age, but without shipwright, you're gonna fall behind some of the top tier naval civs. So Berbers, I think that that's a B tier, right? They have some flaws, but still pretty good. If there's a B plus in tier in this, Berbers would belong there. Okay, Bohemians. Bohemians for me are D tier. You know, you don't get fast fires late. Chemistry, by the way, in Castle Age does not help you get to cannon galleons. You don't have dry dock. You don't have shipwright. You know, you do get some mining upgrades, which are okay. And that'll help you on some gold. But I think early with Bohemians, it's really the wood, like getting docks out. And the wood cost on ships is really, really high. So wood is very important on water maps here. And I just think that they are not really... I don't think that they have a strong point in any particular phase playing water. So I think I gotta throw them into the D tier. Alright, next up, we have the Britons. Britons are so interesting to me. This may come as a little bit of a surprise, but I think that they're A tier. And they're an A tier for a combination of their tech tree and their bonuses, which I think make their navy pretty good at all phases of the game, right? The faster sheep is really nice for helping you get a bit higher of an uptime. Maybe you can get more villagers on wood, that kind of thing, so you can have a really strong galley rush early. You have the cheaper town centers you're not spending a bunch of wood on. That helps you create military while also booming in the mid game. You're only missing elite cannon galleon in your tech tree, so you have everything late. You don't really have a direct bonus to your navy. But again, when I just think about how the Britons play through the ages, I just see them as being good on water, basically maybe at every phase. I do think that they fall behind the S tier civs, and I think if anything, this is more of an A minus navy, but I still think that it gets up into the A tier. Might revise that, put them at the top of B tier. Let's see how we go through the video. Next up, we have the Bulgarians, and yeah, Bulgarians are gonna have to go in the D tier. You know, you can get bracer with galleons, no shipwright. The tech tree is pretty bad, and it's kind of like Bohemians actually, except you really don't get any gold bonus and no wood bonus. So definitely a D tier. That's easy for me. We have the Burgundians. Yeah, I'll put them in the C tier. Their tech tree is pretty bad, but Well, I mean, you're missing dry dock and shipwright. In terms of units, the tech tree is actually okay. But the thing about Burgundians is that because you can get those economic bonuses in early, including gill nets to increase your fishing collection rate, I think you can really get out to an early lead with Burgundians and just be able to, say, crank out more ships, get up to the next age faster. Burgundian eco is probably the best eco in the game right now. Maybe Mayans, Aztecs, a couple others can compete. But Burgundian eco is just so strong, and I think that you can race out early. Again, this starts to fit kind of a one-dimensional civ, but missing dry dock and shipwright in the late game, I just think that you'll fall behind, and it might slow you down a little bit to have to research those economic upgrades. You get them on a discount, but you still got to research them. So I don't feel confident enough putting Burgundians in the B tier yet. I think that they're a nice C tier. Next up with the Burmese. Burmese I'll also put in the C tier. The early game with Burmese, I think, could be really strong because you get the free wood upgrades. But I think you're really saving with it because most of the time, especially in these water maps, the first thing people are doing are researching the wood upgrades. And so you're really only collecting more wood while they're researching the technology, which is actually not a small thing. But the other thing I think what you're really saving on is the food and wood cost. So it does matter. It is having an effect. It's just, it's not like you're getting it in age early, right? You're just getting it. And so if you think about it, right, if you're a little bit behind your opponent, let's say, and they get it before you, right? It's a bonus. Bonuses in Age of Empires 2 tend to snowball, so it is a good bonus. But, you're not getting that bonus in the Dark Age. And so it's really only helping your Grush, kind of more in mid feudal and beyond. And one of the problems is that once you get late, you have a very limited tech tree. You don't get fast fire ships. You don't get shipwright. You do get dry dock, which is nice. So I just think that here's another civilization that I think that kind of like mid-feudal to maybe early to mid-castle age, you have a window. But I think very early in terms of, cranking out units and very late, I just think it could be kind of a weaker civ there. Okay, next up we have the Byzantines. Man, this is another one I think I'm going to struggle with here. It's either S tier or A tier. Let me try to make an argument here for S tier and see how this sounds. So, thinking about them in the different phases of the game, you have faster attacking fire ships. That's a really nice feudal age bonus for fighting in the feudal age and doing a lot of damage, killing your opponent's fishing ships, which is massive for destroying their economy. You have free town watch and town patrol, so that should give your dock some extra line of sight. The Greek fire bonus from the castle age is kind of meh. I think I think it doesn't work as well as some people think. That already sounds like it, and you have a completely open tech tree here, so we're sounding like an A tier civ. The thing that might get us to the next level here is the faster Imperial Age. The faster Imperial Age is more or less your eco bonus with this civ, and if that helps you get into fast fire ships more quickly, that's pretty strong. That's pretty strong. I mean, the problem is that I feel like I could probably make a similar case because the Bengali ships regenerate HP, which is massive. You know what? I think what we got to do here is actually move the Bengalis into S tier because of the ship regeneration, and I'm comfortable keeping the Byzantines. I think that both are pretty strong at all phases of the game. Both don't really have a Dark Age eco bonus, though. This is where... But they get such unique naval advantages, and that really does make them different from the Britons, which I think could have a better early game rush. But man, those Byzantine fast fire ships are so legit. Let's keep two civs in the S tier actually right now, because they're both so good. Next up we have the Celts, and Celts are... I think Celts are another good example of a C tier civ. The wood chopping bonus, which you are getting in Dark Age, gives you a fantastic early game. Your galley rush is very, very nice. And you do get shipwright, which I was actually surprised. I didn't know that going into this video, but you get shipwright. The problem, though, is you miss Bracer, so your galleons are gonna suck, and you also miss fast fire ships as an upgrade in the Imperial Age, so you just don't have a strong warship in the late game. So despite having shipwright, you don't really have a good unit to actually have a reason to research it. So I think that makes Celts an early galley rushing civ, but that's about it. All right, the Chinese. Chinese to me are a nice example of an A-tier civ. You know, cheaper technologies, you have a pretty nice eco. The extra demolition ship HP that Chinese have is good as well. I think that is a little situational for maps that are like really congested where it's hard to maneuver. I think on the fighting on the open sea, I don't think is quite as big of a deal, but it's still nice. So, yeah, and but you are missing fast fires and elite cannon galleon. So like things like, you know, galleons with bracer and shipwright, that's pretty good. And then trying to go demo ships, it's a tricky civ. I'd put them definitely like good A tier and congested maps. On the open sea, I think they're a lot more of a B tier civ, but I think the economy is so strong that we can keep them in the A. Might be one of the weaker A tier civs though. Humans, yeah, it's a D tier. You can make fast fire ships, but that's about it. You don't get bracer, you don't get shipwright, and the Cuman's big economic bonus going to town centers. I think that actually that isn't great for this map, because I think what you would have to do is you basically have to abandon water early, because you're going to need to invest that wood in the town center, which also creates slowly. And so you'd have to try to get back on water at some point. And so, you know, if you lose water, there's really not a guarantee that you'll be able to win it back. So I'm not sure that that's really helping you here. I could be wrong about that, but that would be the thing that I would worry about with this civilization. Outside of some really meme strategies like building that second town center on your opponent's island, which I don't think I've ever seen, but hey, if anybody goes out there and does that, you can call it the Jimmy Landing if you'd like. Just give me credit for it. I'm half joking, only half joking, right? And if you do that, I definitely want to hear about it. So leave a comment about that in this video if you wind up trying that. Let me know how it goes, because I'd be super excited. That being said, I just don't think humans are a very good water civ in general. I do think that they have some landing potential because of the cheap stables. I think that could be good. So I still don't think that gets them out of the D tier because, you know, missing bracer and not having shipwright and just not really. I don't think landing necessarily moves out of the D tier because it's so niche. It's important, so it's good to know that Cumans might be a good landing candidate. So if you random into them, maybe don't fight for Navy. Try some landings. All right, next up we have the Dravidians. Man, Dravidians. This is another tough one. I think Dravidians are S tier. So you get the thing with Dravidians, you have open tech tree. You get 200 wood when you age up, which is outstanding. That's like 1 1/3 docks or something. I forget how much docks cost, but it's really nice. And that's going to help you really nice early feudal, also early castle age. Your fishing ships work better. I think it's like carry more or something. That's great. Your team bonus docks give population space, so that's going to help out your whole team on water. Boy. And then you have your own unique warship, the Thracidae, which some people call the Thirsty Boy, just because it's easy to say, I guess. That's kind of an interesting ship. It's kind of a galleon killer, but it dies kind of hard to fast fires. So I think you really need to know that. So if you're going to go with the Thracidae, I think you probably got to mix in something like demo ships. But even still, you got the wood savings. I just look at the civ and I see a civ that's great at all phases here. So that to me sounds pretty S tier, especially in an imp when you have this really massive warship that you can go for. So I think that's an S tier civ. Next up we have the Ethiopians. Yes, and like Ethiopians as a C tier civ, but actually probably a high C tier civ. You have galleons with bracer and shipwright in the late game, so that's nice. So you know what you want to do with this shiv. This shiv. Don't shiv anybody, right? That'd be bad. Because you're missing fast flyers, you're missing heavy demo, you're missing elite cannon galleon, so that's pretty much all you've got. The extra 100 food, 100 gold might be nice for, you know, having that gold when you age up to, you know, crank out fire ships or something. I think that's kind of modest though. It's not a bad civ. Probably higher in C tier than you would think, but not quite enough options to go B tier. We have the Franks. Franks to me are pretty easy. Are a pretty easy D tier. You don't get bracer, which is really bad. You don't get any real water gold bonuses. Your civ bonuses get kind of wasted here. I just don't think you're strong at really any phases in the game. You have fast fire ships, but without shipwright, it's not really doing anything. Alright, next up we have the Goths, and I think Goths are really interesting. I think that they're C tier, but the reason they're C tier though is that you'd be surprised how flexible of a tech tree they have. They're missing really only dry dock and elite cannon galleon. And you get extra 10 population space late, so you can mass more navy on water late. The Goth navy is in some ways a little like Goth strategy on land, where if you can play for the late game, then you might be able to just have more mass of a navy than your opponent. The problem always is with Goths, it's just trying to find a way to get there. So you're not really going to have any bonuses helping you out early, and so I think you can just be beat by some of those civs that just have stronger early games. Next up we have the Gujaras. And Gujaras are... I've got Gujaras as a B tier civ. So you have galleons with bracer and shipwright. It's really nice. You're missing fast fires, elite cannon galleon. You're missing dry dock as well, right? So this is starting to sound a little C tier, but the thing about Gujaras is that your team bonus allows you and your allies to garrison fishing ships within docks. This can be a lifesaver, especially for you and your allies during the early game. And so that feels enough to me like maybe getting to B tier. I think having the forge bushes and the mill bonus with Gujaras probably helps you sustain food to maybe get up faster than your opponents. And given that you do have galleons with bracer and shipwright, probably a decent landing civ as well, I think there's enough here to see them decent at enough phases of the game to constitute a B tier rating. Now next up we have the Hindustanis, and Hindustanis, I can put them pretty comfortably in the D tier. Missing fast fire, heavy demo, dry dock, shipwright. I just don't see a phase in the game where you'd want to play them. Alright, next up we have the Huns. Huns are kind of weird, right? I think that they're C tier. They're kind of the flip side of Goths. I think you have a really nice galley rush with Huns because you don't have to make houses. That's about it though, right? You do get galleons with bracer, but you're missing fast fires, the entire cannon galleon line shipwright, so that's pretty awful. So strong early grush, but other than that, it's nothing to speak of. Incas. Incas are interesting. I'd put Incas into B tier actually. You have some early upgrades that are pretty smooth, starting with extra llama. Your houses that give you double populations, that's a really nice wood bonus. Cheaper stone buildings can be nice as well, especially if you're landing and tower rushing an opponent. You are missing the entire cannon galleon line, but you do get fast fires and galleons that have bracer. You get shipwright and dry dock. I think you could random into a lot worse civs than Incas. Italians I have no doubt are S tier. You see them picked all the time. Man, with Italians you get cheaper dock technologies, cheaper university technologies, many of which affect docks. You have cheaper fishing ships, you get up to the age is cheaper. You get cheaper gunpowder units, you're only missing heavy demo, and the condottieri, their unique unit that is also a team bonus that your allies get them. It really is probably the ultimate landing unit in the late game. It used to be a very meta strategy a while back, and I think people sometimes still do this with Italians, to just land in the late game on an opponent's island, rush up, 5 or 6 barracks, and just spam condottieri into an opponent's eco. You don't see this much anymore, but condottieri I think are still strong. I can see that strategy making a comeback. Next up we have Japanese, and I play Japanese a lot on water. I really like them. I think they're A tier, not quite S tier though. Your fishing ships are probably the best in the game because they have more armor and HP. They work faster. Your galleys, right? Like the arrow firing galley, right? They get extra line of sight, which is fantastic. Cheaper resource camps allows you to get a really good uptime. You have a pretty open tech tree, only missing heavy demo. I mean, I think that your galley rush with this civilization is probably top 5. But again, it kind of profiles like Japanese do on land in a way. I just think it starts to taper off late because the cheaper resource camps is not as strong of a late game eco bonus. And when you start to run out of fish, or if you get knocked off of water, that can get kind of tricky. You can make fish traps, so that's fine. And and you're going to be able to churn that food out, but you really need wood and gold in the late game anyways. You probably don't need a ton of food. You could sell it, but I just think it's a really strong early civ, kind of tapers off a little bit, and that to me is enough to give it A tier. Okay, next up we have Khmer. Khmer. I just played Khmer on Northern Isles recently, actually, and it was a lot of fun. But this is a farming civ, and I don't think you really want to be farming early anyways. The building bonus is nice, not needing them to age up, but I think in a water map, you're going to get a lumber camp anyways for wood efficiency, and you're going to need a dock because you're probably going to want to make fishing ships. So you're still not really taking advantage of that bonus. I think they're a great landing civ if you want to just ignore water and go for like a really nice uptime, drop a stable on an opponent's island and just try to harass their village early. So I don't think that gets them out of D tier though. Next up we have Koreans. I think Koreans are S tier. Koreans have not only cheaper ships, it's minus 20%, but you still get shipwright. So you have extremely cheap warships with Koreans, and wood is so important. That is a great bonus. You're only missing the heavy demo ship. You get the turtle ship, which is a pretty freaking cool unit. I just, the cheaper ships I think is really nice for early game. And I think that factor just really snowballs throughout the game. You have a really open tech tree. Turtle ships are great. This is just, I think, a pretty strong civilization. I actually think there are towers for controlling sea lanes, and choke points can be really strong because you can get extra range. So yeah, and you're getting those upgrades in the towers for free. So I think when you're looking at really congested water maps where there might be not a lot of space. So if you're thinking about maybe like a map like Nomad, where the shores of the edge of the map are actually kind of close to the edge of like the map in general, Korean towers can reach out a pretty long ways and might be able to control some water space. So I think Koreans, to me, I think that they have enough bonuses. I'd make them an S tier civ. Because then we have Lithuanians, and boy, Lithuanians are like really tough to judge. And before I put Lithuanians in their tier, I will say that I'm not really considering hybrid maps here, where you're mainly just fishing. So maps like Four Lakes, I'm not really including. Yes, you do see warships on Four Lakes. I'm not saying you don't, but the really intense kind of naval battles, that's really more what we're thinking about here. Also, when we're thinking about landing, that kind of stuff, right? So I'm not really thinking about Four Lakes here. And that to me makes Lithuanians much more of a C tier civ. This is an early rushing civ. They can get up fast, and that's great. But other than that, they don't really have any bonuses. They don't get shipwright late. So to me, I think that based on their strong early rushing potential, that's enough to keep them out of D tier. But I just think if the game goes on, because maybe you're up against one of these higher level civs, I think Lithuanians can fall off a bit. But You do have a really nice early galley rush, and so to me, they just seem a little one-dimensional. Next up, we have the Magyars, and Magyars are actually kind of like Goths in that you have this really nice late game where you're only missing heavy demo ships and elite candy galleons, right? So the problem with Magyars is not having really any economic bonus to get there. So the question is just how to survive on water. I think they're a pretty good landing civ as well, but they're not a bad water civ. They might be closer to B tier than you actually think. Okay, next up we have the Malay, and I think Malay are... I think they're A tier. You can get ahead in eco with having decent uptimes. You can transform docks into harbors which shoot arrows. You have really cheap fish traps. They're kind of, to me, they're like the reverse of Japanese, in that I think a civ like Japanese has a much better galley rush than Malay. But Malay late game, I think Malay have an S tier late game. And so I think it's just, if you can just get to like Lake Castle Age and get your harbors down, controlling the shoreline, you don't really have any performance bonuses, right? I think you can have a really, really strong late game with it. It's probably an S tier late game civ. I think it probably averages out to an A tier. Next up are Malians. Malians are, I think, another good example of a C tier civ actually. Cheaper buildings is great for this civ. You have a very strong early game, and that's why you often, I think, see them picked on Nomad when people like to fight for water. But you're missing Bracer, you're missing Galleon, and you're missing Shipwright. So this is a civ, if you can end it early, if you lose control of water at any point with the civ, I don't think you're coming back on it. Castle Age will be on. Next up we have the Mayans. Mayans to me are another C tier civ. You're missing the entire Cannon Galleon line. Their resources lasting longer bonus, I think, was recently corrected to also affect their fishing, so that's great. You just don't really have anything that great with the Mayans. I don't know. It just seems kind of pedestrian to me. But maybe they're more of a B tier if you're only missing the Cannon Galleon line. I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of trying to compare them to, say, a civ like Incas right now that I do have in the B tier. You know what? If you can go galleons with Bracer and Shipwright, and you can go fast fire ships, I think they have to be B tier. Let's put them in a B tier. Mongols? Ooh, Mongols are really nice. Oh, man. I'd put Mongols in the B tier as well, actually. You have a really nice galley rush. The faster hunt lets you get up to the next age more quickly. You do get Shipwright. You miss Dry Dock and also Elite Cannon Galleon, so that's going to hurt you a bit. I think it's probably S tier early. I think it's probably something maybe closer to C tier in late game, despite having Shipwright. Missing Dry Dock can be kind of a bummer, because being able to withdraw from fights on water maps is actually really important, because if you can't disengage, then you could lose a lot of military. So I think B tier is good for them. Next up are Persians. Either C or B tier. So the B tier argument for Persians goes something like, you have an insanely good rush because your docks work faster, they have more HP, which allows you to stay on water. You have a little bit of an early wood bonus, but you're just missing some technologies like Bracer late. And that's pretty massive. I don't know. Because Persians are also a really common nomad pick like Malians. But I think on most water maps, I like Persians more in the late game. Oh, but you're missing Shipwright. if you're missing shipwright, sorry Persians, you gotta go down to the C tier. If they had shipwright, I think there's an argument for them. Again, very one-dimensional, but I think that this is civ. You might be able to come back on water because you have the faster working docks. It's tough. But I think for thinking about the Navy, missing bracer and missing shipwright, I just think that that's too much. Next up, we have the poles. Poles to me are D tier. I think a lot of their bonuses are wasted. You don't get shipwright. You're missing dry dock. You're just missing a lot of bonuses here. I just think you'll struggle late. And I just don't think, you know, the poles get ahead through farming. And you're probably not farming here, so you're not really using that bonus. I just think that they feel... I just don't think I'd want them at any phase of the game. Portuguese. Portuguese is probably the easiest thing to grade here. Definitely an S tier. Your units cost less gold. Your technology is researched faster. Your ships have more HP. Oh, they can get more armor. You have the Caravel, which is an insane ship as well. Free cartography to help out your allies. Oh yeah, in the Feitoria, you have potentially infinite resources. Portuguese are the best water civ in the game. I just don't think there's any getting around that. I think you do miss fast fires late, so you do have a weakness, but they're still just too good. Next up, we have the Saracens, and Saracens, sadly for me, I think you have to go in the B tier. Your galleys attack faster, and you have bracer, but you have no shipwright. So, pre-Imperial Age, this can be really nice. Your transport ships have higher capacity. You miss fast fires. I think your late game is just not that great. I really hate the civilization with faster attacking galleys as to go into B tier here. But I think you have to think about your macro in these situations. The fact you can't even make fast fire ship and you don't get shipwright. I don't know. This just feels like a much stronger early game civ. I think the faster attacking galleys can help you win water even in Castle Age. But we start going beyond that. It's getting pretty flimsy here. Sicilians. Oh, man. Sicilians are tough. So, oh man, this is tough. It's either A or B tier. So the thing about Sicilians is you're not really, your galley rush should be pretty generic, but because you're not putting down farms usually in feudal age, I think once you get to Castle Age with this civ, it can get really strong because at some point you may have to farm, and the fact that your farms last so long really can help you save a lot of wood with Sicilians. You have a really open tech tree, only missing elite cannon galleon. You have cheaper transport ships with more line of sight. I think that's the team bonus, so that's really helping your allies. You have a little bit of extra stone. Your TCs go up, so you can boom really nice. But for me, it's just when I compare this to a civ like the Britons that I think has some bonuses that has a bonus that really helps their early grush potential and also has a good eco bonus in the mid game to help them fight for water and boom. I don't see the Sicilians as having as strong a mid game bonus. Well, I see them having maybe, honestly, with the faster built town centers, might even be on par with Britons in terms of the economic effect. I haven't written a dissertation on that or anything, but I just think you're missing too much for your grush and even fighting on water in feudal age. I think that it's not. I don't think you get quite enough of a bonus as the civilizations that I look at above them. Next up, Slavs. Oh yeah, no bracer, no shipwright, no chance of making it out of the D tier. Spanish are super interesting. Oh man, I really like Spanish in the A tier actually. You have a very open tech tree. Your cannon galleons fire faster, and so cannon galleons are like, when you watch the cannonball fired from a cannon galleon, it looks like it's defying gravity with basically every other civilization but Spanish. Spanish cannon galleons are actually pretty cool. You can build buildings faster, which I think is a nice little bonus for getting your docks out. Blacksmith technology is costing no gold. I think really helps you get techs like Bracer for galleons. The fact that trade units generate gold is if you're using trade cogs in the late game, that can be really nice. I think you're not bad in a lot of phases here. The only problem is that your galley rush early, I don't think that the getting buildings up faster is going to really help that much. I just think that your late game is so open and so good, and the candy galleons are so good with this civ. I think I'd put this I think it's situated in the bottom of A tier. Because if I think, would I rather have Sicilians or Spanish? I think it's really close. And I think as long as I'm not, that's tough. I think as long as I'm not farming and having to rely on farms, and I am actually able to fish, I think I like Spanish more. It's just a really nice texture. Because Sicilians miss elite cannon galleon, and shore bombardments can be really useful. Cannon galleons have gotten a lot of buffs here lately. I think they're meant to be seen a bit more. They are pretty expensive, so to be able to actually use them with Spanish, I think really gives them an edge. So I'll keep them in A tier. Tatars. Oh, Tatars. Yeah, I just think that they're D tier. I don't think the sheep bonus is helping you quite as much here because you kind of take sheep a bit later. You're not really taking, if you watch my Galley Rush video, you're not really eating sheep during the transition from Dark Age to Feudal, so that bonus isn't helping you terribly. You miss Shipwright, Heavy Demo. I just don't see a phase where they're going to be strong really at any point in the game. You do have a reasonably open tech tree, but how much does that matter when you don't have Shipwright? I don't think it matters a lot, so... Teutons, D tier, missing Bracer, Shipwright, yeah, that's easy. Turks are another interesting one. I'm pretty comfortable with Turks in A tier. They're kind of similar to Spanish, but I actually think they have better bonuses. I mean, this is all about gunpowder, right? Free chemistry, cheaper gunpowder technologies, more hit points for gunpowder units, faster gold miners, more range for your cannon galleons. Gunpowder units create faster. Gunpowder. This is S tier gunpowder, probably the best. The only problem is that gunpowder really only becomes important late. Having the faster mining gold can be nice, I think, for cranking out fire ships in a galley rush. But you do miss fast fire ships late, so you have that weakness. But hey, you have galleons with Bracer and Shipwright, really nice cannon galleons. I think that they're pretty close to Spanish in this, and you have a nice open tech tree, and you can go galleons. So yeah, I think that they have enough bonuses and to stick around. Here, yeah. So I'm actually kind of fine with that. Okay, Vietnamese. I think Vietnamese for me are a C tier civ. The no wood cost on the eco upgrades can be nice early for helping you. So it's not cutting into your warship production or your fishing ship production. Lumberjacks generating gold in late game actually might be strong on an islands map that tends to go late. I'd be willing to revise this. If anybody has experience using the new paper money technology on islands with Vietnamese, let me know. I think that though, one of the main problems with the civilization is that you're missing Shipwright. And so if it goes late, you're gonna be paying a lot more wood on your ships, and they're not gonna create as fast. So that kind of sucks. So yeah, I don't know. I still think it's a C tier, even with the paper money tech, but that might get them closer to B tier. And last, but definitely not least, is Vikings, which is going to go in the S tier. The Vikings have a weakness, and they miss the fire galley line, but you have cheaper docks, cheaper warships, you have the longboat, which is insane, you have insane eco. So with the Vikings, you want to understand that you do have an early game limitation, because fire galley rushing is usually the meta. However, because of the cheaper docks, because of the cheaper warships, usually what you can do with Vikings is you get enough resource savings to just go to galleys, maybe you back dock, get the numbers up, and eventually get to numbers where you can hit and run fire ships. That's kind of how you play it. Vikings, and that can be tough to do because you can lose control of the front of your base. But Vikings are a civ that, well, they're well positioned to do it. And then as the game goes on, gets pretty fantastic. All right, so that's the tier list. I'm just going to take a moment to look and see if there's any that I would change. Really, for me, the only one I'm thinking about is Sicilians. Maybe putting them into A tier. They just have such an open technology tree. But I just don't see them becoming strong on water, honestly. Despite having the nice transport ship for landings, you know, that can help. And they're not a bad civ to land with. Because their scouts don't take as much damage from spearmen, so you might be able to really harass an opponent. That is something to think about. Sicilians. I'm just looking at the other civs. Yeah, I think I'm comfortable with the Sicilians being kind of top of B tier with, you know, civs maybe like Berbers and Mongols. I mean, we're going to keep them in alphabetical order here, but yeah, I think I'm fine with this tier list. As you can see, right, there's a lot of civs in the C tier that are pretty one-dimensional. A lot of civs in the D tier. I think that there are some strong A tier civs, some strong S tier civs, and the civs that are in S tier, I think, are the ones that are picked the lion's share of times in the game. So that's something to think about. But yeah, so anyways, guys, that's the tier list, right? Let me know what you think. Would you put anything in a different spot? Do you agree? You know, is there something maybe that I didn't think about in this video? You guys let me know. And if you did enjoy this video, go ahead, give it a like, right? We have 42 civs in the game, so anytime I can keep a tier list under an hour, I feel pretty strong about it. So, you know, I'm going to jump off here so you don't have to hear my voice any longer. Although, if you do enjoy my voice, right, there are many other tier list videos that you can watch after this one. And with that being said, right, I'm Jimmy James 59, and y'all, I will see you out there on the ladder. Peace.